The morning sun was just starting to light up the city when Elena Martinez woke up. She reached over to her nightstand and felt for her phone. It was 6 in the morning. Today was the day that would change everything, though she did not know it yet. Elena sat up in bed and ran her fingers through her long dark hair. She had not slept well. Her stomach felt tight with worry. Today was the audition at the Berkshire Music Academy, one of the best music schools in the country. If she got the scholarship, she could study music properly. If she did not get it, well, she tried not to think about that. Her mother knocked softly on the door. "Elena, are you awake?" "We need to leave in 2 hours." "I'm awake, Mom," Elena called back. She stood up and walked across her room. Her feet knew every inch of this space. She had memorized where everything was. The desk was 3 steps from the bed. The closet was 5 steps to the left. The door was straight ahead 7 steps. When you cannot see, you learn to count everything. Elena had been blind for 8 years now. She lost her sight when she was only 8 years old. A rare sickness attacked her eyes and the doctors could not save them. She remembered colors and faces from before, but those memories were fading now like old photographs left in the sun. Sometimes she dreamed in pictures. Sometimes she dreamed in sounds and feelings. After the sickness took her sight, everything changed. School became harder. Making friends became harder. Even walking down the street became something she had to learn all over again. But then her father bought her a piano. It was not a fancy piano. It was old and used, bought from a family that was moving away. Some of the keys stuck a little. The sound was not perfect. But to Elena, it was the most beautiful thing in the world. When she sat at that piano and put her fingers on the keys, she could do something that blindness could not take away. She could create beauty. She could speak without words. She could see with her ears. Elena got dressed carefully. She chose the blue dress her mother had bought for this special day. Her mother had described it to her in detail. It was dark blue like the night sky, with long sleeves and a simple cut. "You look like a real musician," her mother had said when Elena first tried it on. In the kitchen, her mother had made breakfast, but Elena could only eat a little bit. The worry in her stomach left no room for food. "You need to eat something," her mother said gently. "It's a long drive to the academy." "I know, Mom, I'm just nervous." Her mother sat down next to her and took her hand. "Your father would be so proud of you today. I wish he could be here to see this." Elena felt tears start to form in her eyes. Her father had died 2 years ago in an accident at the construction site where he worked. He never got to hear her play at a real audition. He never knew how good she had become, but she remembered how he used to sit in their tiny living room and listen to her practice for hours. He would clap after every piece, even when she made mistakes. "That's my girl," he would say. "That's my musical girl." The money her father had saved was almost gone now. The old piano was still in their apartment, but it needed repairs they could not afford. Elena's mother worked 2 jobs, but it was barely enough. This scholarship was not just a dream, it was a necessity. They left the apartment at 8 in the morning. Elena held her white cane in one hand and her mother's arm with the other. They took the bus to the train station, then the train to Berkshire. The whole journey took 3 hours. Elena spent the time going over the music in her head. She had chosen Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2. It was a difficult piece, maybe too difficult. Her teacher, Mrs. Chen, had suggested something easier, but Elena wanted to show them what she could really do. Mrs. Chen had been teaching Elena for free for the past 4 years. She was an old woman from China who had once been a concert pianist herself. She saw something special in Elena, something worth nurturing. "You have gift," Mrs. Chen always said in her broken English. "Not just talent. Gift from universe. You must share it." When they arrived at the Berkshire Music Academy, Elena could hear the grandness of the place. The sounds echoed differently here. The ceilings were high. The hallways were wide. Everything smelled like old wood and furniture polish. Important places always had that smell. "It's beautiful," her mother whispered. "There are paintings on the walls and a huge staircase. The floor is made of marble." Elena did not need to see it. She could feel the importance of this place in the air itself. This was where serious musicians came. This was where futures were decided. Her mother guided her to the auditorium where the auditions were being held. They could hear music coming from inside. Someone was playing violin. They were very good. Elena's stomach tightened even more. They checked in with a woman at a desk outside the auditorium. "Elena Martinez?" the woman said. You're number 17. Please have a seat and wait for your name to be called. The waiting area had about 30 other young people. Some were with their parents. Some were alone. All of them looked nervous. Elena could hear whispers and the rustling of sheet music. Someone was practicing scales very quietly. Someone else was breathing like they might be sick. Elena and her mother found 2 chairs and sat down. Elena held her cane between her knees. Her hands were shaking a little. She tried to breathe slowly and calmly like Mrs. Chen had taught her. There are a lot of talented kids here, her mother whispered, but none of them have your heart. People were called one by one. Each audition seemed to last about 15 minutes. Elena counted them. Number 8, number 9, number 10, getting closer. Then she heard something that made her blood run cold. A man's voice speaking loudly enough for everyone to hear. Who approved that one? The voice said. It was sharp and cold. The blind girl. Number 17. Elena's mother squeezed her hand. Another voice, quieter, said something Elena could not hear. I don't care about diversity quotas, the first voice said. This is a serious institution. We're not here to make people feel good. We're here to train real musicians. Elena felt her face grow hot. She knew people were looking at her. She could feel their eyes. That's Victor Steinberg, someone whispered nearby. The famous pianist. He's one of the judges this year. Elena had heard of Victor Steinberg. Everyone who loved classical music had heard of him. He had played in concert halls all over the world. He had won every major award. He was considered one of the greatest living pianists, and he thought she did not belong here. Maybe we should leave, her mother whispered in her ear. You don't need this. There are other schools. No, Elena said firmly. I'm staying. I'm going to play. More numbers were called, 13, 14, 15, 16, then finally number 17. Elena Martinez. Elena stood up. Her legs felt weak, but she made them move. Her mother started to stand too, but Elena shook her head. I need to do this alone. She walked toward the auditorium entrance, tapping her cane ahead of her. Someone held the door open. The auditorium was huge. She could tell by the way sounds moved in the space. There must be hundreds of seats, Miss Martinez, a kind voice said. It was a woman. I'm Professor Williams. I'll guide you to the piano. The professor took Elena's arm gently and led her across the stage. Elena could hear whispers from the judges' table. She could feel people watching her. Then she heard that cold voice again. Victor Steinberg. This is a waste of everyone's time, he said, not even trying to whisper. Blindness is a tragedy, certainly. But compassion has no place in a serious audition. We're not a charity. Elena stopped walking. Her whole body wanted to turn around and run. But then she thought about her father. She thought about all those hours of practice. She thought about Mrs. Chen believing in her. She thought about that old piano in her apartment that her father had worked so hard to buy. I'm ready, Elena said, her voice steady. Professor Williams helped her to the piano bench and stepped away. Elena sat down and adjusted her position. She placed her white cane on the floor beside her. Then she lifted her hands and let them hover over the keys. The room became completely silent. Not a whisper. Not a cough. Not a breath. In that silence, Elena could hear everything. She could hear her own heartbeat. She could hear the creaking of chairs as people shifted. She could hear someone's watch ticking from the judge's table. She placed her fingers on the keys and felt the cool, smooth ivory beneath her fingertips. This was her language. This was where blindness did not matter. This was where she could show them who she really was. Elena took one deep breath, closed her eyes even though she could not see anyway, and began to play. The first notes of Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2 filled the auditorium. Her left hand played the deep rolling chords while her right hand sang out the melody. The music was soft at first, like a question being asked. Then it grew stronger, more confident. Elena forgot about Victor Steinberg. She forgot about the scholarship. She forgot about being blind. There was only the music and her fingers and the story she was telling. She poured everything into those keys. Every loss, every struggle, every moment of joy, every memory of her father listening in their small apartment. Her hands moved across the keyboard with perfect precision. She had memorized every single note, every dynamic, every pause. But this was not just memorization. This was feeling. This was breathing. This was living. The music built and built, getting louder and more complex. Her fingers flew across the keys, playing passages that most pianists twice her age could not manage. The piano sang and cried and laughed under her touch. In the audience area, Elena could not see what was happening. She could not see the judges sitting up straighter in their chairs. She could not see Professor Williams with her hand over her mouth. She could not see the other students leaning forward in their seats. And she could not see Victor Steinberg's face changing from dismissive boredom to shock to something else entirely. The music climbed to a powerful crescendo, Elena's whole body moving with the emotion of it. Then it softened again, becoming gentle and sad. This was the part where she always thought of her father. The melody seemed to float in the air like a memory of something beautiful that was gone. Elena played the final section with everything she had left. The music built one last time to a thunderous, triumphant finish. She struck the final chords with perfect timing and let them ring out into the silence. Then she lifted her hands from the keys and sat very still. For 3 long seconds, there was absolutely no sound in that auditorium. Elena's heart pounded in her chest. Had she made a mistake? Had it not been good enough? Then the silence broke. Someone started clapping. Then someone else. Then it seemed like everyone was clapping at once. The sound was overwhelming. Elena could hear people standing up. Someone shouted, "Brava!" She could not believe what was happening, but she could not see that while most people were on their feet applauding, one person remained seated at the judge's table. Victor Steinberg sat frozen in his chair, his hands gripping the edge of the table. His face was pale, and for the first time in 20 years, tears were rolling down his cheeks. Elena sat at the piano bench, breathing hard. The applause continued to wash over her like waves. She had never heard anything like this before. In her small performances at school or at Mrs. Chen's studio recitals, there might be 20 or 30 people clapping politely. This was different. This was hundreds of hands coming together to create a sound that made her chest feel tight with emotion. She stood up carefully and took a small bow, the way Mrs. Chen had taught her. She was not sure which direction to face, so she bowed to where she thought the audience was, then turned and bowed toward the judge's table. Professor Williams came to her side quickly. "That was extraordinary," she whispered as she guided Elena off the stage. Truly extraordinary. Elena's legs felt shaky as she walked. The adrenaline that had carried her through the performance was fading now, leaving her feeling weak and overwhelmed. As they exited the stage, her mother rushed to her and wrapped her in a tight hug. "My baby," her mother said, crying. "My beautiful, talented baby. Your father heard that." "I know he did." Elena hugged her mother back, feeling her own tears start to fall. She had done it. Whatever happened next, she had played her very best. She had shown them what she could do. They returned to their seats in the waiting area. Other students and parents looked at Elena differently now. Some smiled at her. Some whispered to each other. One girl, maybe 13 years old, came over and said, "That was the most beautiful thing I've ever heard." "Thank you," Elena said softly. But even as people congratulated her, Elena could not stop thinking about Victor Steinberg's words before she played. "A waste of everyone's time. We're not a charity." Those words hurt more than she wanted to admit. Even if she had played well, would he still judge her unfairly? Would he convince the other judges that she did not deserve the scholarship? The auditions continued for another 2 hours. Elena and her mother waited, as they had been told that results would be announced at the end of the day. Elena tried to listen to the other performances through the auditorium doors, but she could not concentrate. Her mind kept replaying her own performance, finding mistakes that probably no one else had noticed. A note she had held a bit too long, a transition that could have been smoother. Finally, the last audition ended. An announcement came over the speakers. "All audition participants and their families, please return to the auditorium for the results." Elena's heart started pounding again. This was it. Her mother took her arm and they walked back into the large space. Someone directed them to seats in the front section. Elena could hear other families settling in around them, everyone whispering nervously. The 3 judges came out onto the stage. Professor Williams spoke first, thanking everyone for coming and talking about how difficult the decisions had been. Elena barely heard the words. She was too nervous. Then Professor Williams started announcing the results. There were several categories of scholarships: honorable mentions, partial scholarships, full scholarships. Each time a name was called that was not hers, Elena felt her hope shrink a little more. Finally, Professor Williams said, "And now, for our full 4-year scholarship, covering tuition, room, board, and instrument fees," and she paused. Elena held her breath. "This year's recipient is Elena Martinez." For a moment, Elena could not move. Had she heard correctly? Her mother screamed and grabbed her, hugging her so tight Elena could barely breathe. All around them, people were clapping. Someone patted Elena on the back. Professor Williams was saying something else, but Elena could not hear over the rushing sound in her ears. She had done it. She had actually done it. But then Elena heard a voice cutting through the celebration. That same cold voice from before. "I need to speak with Miss Martinez now." It was Victor Steinberg. The joy Elena had been feeling froze in her chest. Her mother's grip on her arm tightened protectively. "I'll go with you," her mother said. Professor Williams approached them. "Mr. Steinberg would like a word with you, Elena. But only if you're comfortable with that." Elena wanted to say no. She wanted to take her scholarship and leave and never think about Victor Steinberg again. But something in her needed to hear what he had to say. She needed to face him. "Okay," Elena said. "I'll talk to him." Professor Williams led Elena and her mother to a small room off the side of the auditorium. Elena could hear Victor Steinberg's footsteps following them. They were heavy, slow steps. He walked like someone carrying a great weight. "Please sit," Professor Williams said. Elena heard chairs being pulled out. She sat down, her mother beside her, her hand in Elena's. Victor Steinberg sat down across from them. For a long moment, no one spoke. Elena waited, her heart beating fast. What could he possibly want to say to her? When Victor finally spoke, his voice sounded different than before. It was softer, rough with emotion. "Miss Martinez," he began. Then he stopped. Elena heard him take a deep breath. "Miss Martinez, I owe you an apology. What I said before your audition was cruel and ignorant and unforgivable." Elena sat very still, hardly daring to believe what she was hearing. "I judged you before you played a single note," Victor continued. "I saw your blindness and decided you could not possibly be a serious musician. I was wrong. I was so completely, utterly wrong." Elena's mother squeezed her hand. "I have been playing piano for 40 years, Victor said. His voice cracked slightly. "I have heard thousands of performances. I have played on the greatest stages in the world. And today you taught me something I had forgotten. You reminded me what music truly is." "Thank you," Elena said quietly, not sure what else to say. "No," Victor said firmly. "Don't thank me. I don't deserve your thanks. I deserve your anger. What I said to you was the same prejudice I faced when I was young. I came to this country with nothing. People looked at me and decided I could not be a real musician because of where I came from, because of my accent, because I was different. I swore I would never do that to anyone else. And today I did exactly that. I became the thing I hated most." Professor Williams spoke gently. "Victor has been quite shaken by your performance, Elena. We all have been. But I think he wants to discuss something with you." Victor cleared his throat. "Miss Martinez, you have won the full scholarship." That was decided unanimously. All 3 judges agreed immediately after your performance. "You deserve it completely, but I want to offer you something more." Elena frowned, confused. "Something more?" "I would like to be your mentor," Victor said. "I would like to teach you personally. You have extraordinary natural talent, but with proper training, with someone who can help you refine your technique and interpretation, you could perform on the world's greatest stages. You could be truly exceptional." Elena's mind raced. Victor Steinberg wanted to teach her? The same man who had called her a waste of time? Her mother spoke for the first time. "Why? Why would you want to teach her? Is this because you feel guilty?" "Yes," Victor said honestly. "It is partly because I feel guilty. I should feel guilty. But it's also because I have never, in 30 years of teaching, heard anyone play the way your daughter played today. She has something that cannot be taught. But there are things I can help her develop. I can open doors for her. I can introduce her to people. I can help her reach her full potential." Elena shook her head slowly. "I don't want your pity." "It's not pity," Victor said urgently. "Please believe me. If you had played badly, I would not make this offer no matter how guilty I felt. I am offering this because you are genuinely, remarkably talented, because you deserve the best training available, and because," he paused, Because I think you can help me become a better teacher, a better person. I need to think about it, Elena said. She felt overwhelmed. Everything was happening too fast, of course, Victor said. Take all the time you need. The offer stands for as long as you need to decide. And regardless of whether you accept my mentorship, you have the scholarship. That's yours. You earned it, Professor Williams stood. Why don't we all take a break? Elena, your mother, you're welcome to walk around the campus if you'd like. The gardens are particularly lovely this time of year. Elena and her mother left the room. As soon as they were alone in the hallway, her mother said, You don't have to do this. We can find another teacher. You already have Mrs. Chen. I know, Elena said. But Mom, Victor Steinberg is one of the greatest pianists alive. If he really wants to teach me, if this is a real offer, if, her mother said. That's a big if. What if he's just trying to make himself feel better? What if he gives up on you after a few months? What if he still sees you as a project, not a real student? These were all the same questions spinning in Elena's head. She did not know the answers. They walked outside into the fresh air. Elena could feel the warmth of the sun on her face. She could hear birds singing and leaves rustling in the wind. Her mother described the campus to her. Beautiful old buildings, green lawns, students walking with instrument cases. This could be your life, her mother said softly. This could be your home for the next 4 years. It doesn't feel real, Elena said. They sat on a bench for a while, not talking, just being together. Elena thought about her father. What would he tell her to do? She thought about Mrs. Chen. What would she advise? She thought about the scholarship, about the chance to study music seriously, about Victor Steinberg's offer. After an hour, they went back inside. Professor Williams found them and said, Victor would like to speak with you again if you're willing. He has something to show you. They returned to the small room. Victor was there, and he had a laptop computer set up on the table. Miss Martinez, he said, while you were outside, something happened. Someone at your audition recorded your performance on their phone and posted it on the internet. Elena's stomach dropped. What? The video has been online for 3 hours, Victor said. It already has over 200,000 views. 200,000? Elena's mother gasped. Let me read you some of the comments, Victor said. I'm crying. This is the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. The way that judge tried to dismiss her before she played. He must feel so ashamed now. Blind or not, this girl is incredible. There are thousands of comments like this. The video is being shared everywhere. Elena did not know what to say. She had never imagined that anyone beyond the people in that auditorium would hear her play. This is just the beginning, Victor said. Tomorrow news websites will pick up the story. Music blogs will write about you. People will want interviews. Your life is about to change, Miss Martinez, and you're going to need guidance on how to handle it. Professor Williams added, He's right, Elena. Fame can be overwhelming, especially unexpected fame. Having an experienced mentor could be very valuable. Victor's voice became earnest. I'm not trying to pressure you. I'm just trying to be honest about what's coming. The classical music world is small and it can be difficult to navigate. I made many mistakes when I was young because I had no one to guide me. I don't want you to make those same mistakes. Elena sat quietly, taking it all in. Finally, she spoke. If I agree to this, I have conditions. Name them, Victor said immediately. First, you have to promise to treat me exactly like any other student. No special treatment because I'm blind. No going easy on me because you feel guilty about what happened today. I promise, Victor said. I will push you harder than I've pushed anyone. You have my word. Second, if at any point I feel like you're treating me like a charity case or a project, I can walk away. No questions asked. Agreed. And third, Elena said, her voice firm, you have to apologize to me publicly. Not hidden in a small room. Publicly. I want other people who are blind or different to know that even when someone like you doubts them, they can prove those doubts wrong. There was a moment of silence. Then Victor said, Yes, I will do that. I should do that. Thank you for asking it of me. Elena took a deep breath. Then I accept. You can be my mentor. Her mother squeezed her hand, supporting her decision even though Elena could feel her worry. Victor's voice was thick with emotion. Thank you. I promise I will not let you down. We'll start slowly. 2 lessons a week to begin with, so you can adjust to everything else. We'll work on repertoire, technique, performance presence. and I'll help you prepare for the opportunities that are going to come your way. Opportunities? Elena asked. Professor Williams spoke up. Elena, there's something else. We've already received a call. The producers of Carnegie Hall's Young Artist Showcase saw the video. They want you to perform there in 3 months. Elena felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. Carnegie Hall, one of the most famous concert halls in the entire world. Musicians dreamed their whole lives of playing there. 3 months? Her mother said. That's so soon. Is that enough time? With intensive training, yes, Victor said. It will be hard work. Probably the hardest work of your life. But Elena, if you're willing to put in the effort, I believe you can be ready. This is the kind of opportunity that comes once in a lifetime. Elena's mind was spinning. Just this morning, she had been nervous about a simple audition. Now she had a full scholarship, a world-famous mentor, and an invitation to perform at Carnegie Hall. It was too much. It was overwhelming. But underneath the fear and the shock, Elena felt something else. Excitement. This was what she had dreamed about in those long hours of practice. This was why she had worked so hard. This was her chance to show the world what she could do. I'll do it, Elena said. I'll perform at Carnegie Hall. Victor stood up and Elena heard him move around the table. He took her hand and shook it formally. Then we begin tomorrow. I'll arrange everything. We'll have our first lesson here at the academy, 9 in the morning. Don't be late. Elena smiled for the first time since entering this room. I won't be. As they left the academy that evening, Elena's phone began buzzing constantly with notifications. Her mother checked it and gasped. Elena, the video is up to 500,000 views now. And there are messages from reporters who want to interview you. Someone from a record company. Someone from a magazine. What do I do? Elena asked, feeling overwhelmed again. For tonight, nothing, her mother said firmly. Tonight, we go home and celebrate. Tomorrow, we figure out the rest. On the train ride home, Elena leaned her head against the window. She could feel the vibration of the tracks beneath them. Everything had changed in one day, one performance. One moment, she thought about what Victor had said, about how he had faced prejudice when he was young, about how he had become the thing he hated. People were complicated. They could be cruel and kind. They could make mistakes and learn from them. Elena had spent so long being angry at people who doubted her. Maybe it was time to show them that forgiveness was possible too. Her phone buzzed again. Another notification. Another person sharing her video. Another stranger listening to her play. Elena smiled to herself in the darkness. Her father would have loved this. He would have been so proud. What are you thinking about? Her mother asked softly. Everything, Elena said. I'm thinking about everything. The train carried them home through the night toward whatever came next. Elena woke up at 5 in the morning, 2 hours before her alarm was supposed to ring. She had been dreaming about Carnegie Hall, about playing in front of thousands of people and forgetting every note. Her heart was still racing from the dream. She got out of bed and walked to the piano in her living room. It was the same old piano her father had bought her all those years ago. Some keys still stuck a little. The sound was still not perfect. But it was home. She sat down and started playing scales, letting the familiar patterns calm her nerves. Today was her first lesson with Victor Steinberg. In the 3 days since the audition, Elena's life had turned completely upside down. The video of her performance now had over 2 million views. News articles had been written about her. Her phone rang constantly with people wanting interviews or offering opportunities. Her mother had to take time off work just to help manage everything. Mrs. Chen had come to visit yesterday. She had hugged Elena tight and said, I always know you have gift. Now world knows too. But there had been sadness in her voice. Elena was moving forward and Mrs. Chen, her first real teacher, was being left behind. You'll always be my teacher, Elena had told her. Victor can teach me technique, but you taught me heart. Mrs. Chen had cried a little then. You call me anytime you need. I am always here for you. Elena finished her scales and checked the time. 6 in the morning. She needed to get ready. The academy was a 3-hour journey, and Victor had been very clear. 9 o'clock. Don't be late. She showered and dressed in comfortable clothes. Her mother had packed her a bag with water and snacks. You don't know how long this will take, her mother said. Victor Steinberg might work you all day. The journey to the academy felt different this time. Last time, Elena had been just another hopeful student. Now she was the girl from the video. People on the train whispered and pointed. Someone asked for a photo. Someone else asked for her autograph. Elena tried to be polite, but it was strange and uncomfortable. When they arrived at the academy, Professor Williams was waiting for them at the entrance. "Good morning, Elena. Victor is already in the practice room. He's been here since 7. Professor Williams guided them through the building to a practice room on the 3rd floor. She knocked on the door and then opened it. "Elena is here." "Thank you, Professor." Victor's voice came from inside. "Please come in, Elena." Elena walked into the room. It smelled like wood and old books. She could hear the echo of the space. It was not large, but not tiny either. "Perfect for practice. Good morning," Elena said. "You're early," Victor said. "Good. Punctuality shows respect for music and for those who teach you." "Your mother can wait in the lounge down the hall?" "We have work to do." Elena's mother squeezed her shoulder and left. Suddenly, Elena was alone with Victor Steinberg, one of the greatest pianists in the world who had humiliated her just days ago and now wanted to be her mentor. Her stomach felt tight. "Sit," Victor said. Elena heard him pull out the piano bench. She made her way to it and sat down. "Let me be clear about how this will work," Victor said. His voice was firm but not unkind. "I will push you hard. I will criticize you. I will demand excellence. If at any point you feel I am being unfair or treating you differently because of your blindness, you must tell me immediately." "Agreed?" "Agreed," Elena said. "Good. Now play for me what you played at the audition, the Rachmaninoff." Elena placed her hands on the keys. This piano was much better than hers at home. The keys were smooth and responsive. She began to play. She made it through about 2 minutes before Victor said, "Stop." Elena lifted her hands, confused. "You're playing it the same way you played it at the audition," Victor said. "That was a beautiful performance, but if you perform the exact same way every time, it becomes mechanical. It loses life. Music must breathe. It must change and grow each time you play it. Do you understand?" "I think so," Elena said. "No, don't think. Feel. Play the opening again, but this time, imagine you're telling a story to a child. How would you make it gentle? How would you make it welcoming?" Elena tried again, making the opening softer, more delicate. "Better," Victor said. "Now play it again, but this time imagine you're angry. Imagine the music is a storm." Elena played it harder, with more force. "Good. You see? The notes are the same, but the feeling is completely different. This is what we'll work on. Not just playing the notes correctly, but understanding all the different colors and emotions you can create. Again, from the beginning." They worked on just the first section for over an hour. Victor stopped her constantly, asking her to try different approaches, different feelings, different dynamics. It was exhausting but exhilarating. Elena had never thought about music this way before. Finally, Victor said, "Enough for now. Let's talk about Carnegie Hall." Elena's stomach tightened again at the mention of it. "You're nervous," Victor observed. "Good. If you weren't nervous, I'd be worried. But we need to turn that nervous energy into focused energy. We have 3 months. That's not much time, but it's enough if we work hard. Tell me, what scares you most about performing there?" Elena thought for a moment. "Making a mistake in front of all those people." "Mistakes will happen," Victor said simply. "Even the greatest musicians make mistakes. What matters is how you recover from them. If you make a mistake and panic, the audience will panic with you. If you make a mistake and continue with confidence, most people won't even notice. We'll practice that. I'll have you play pieces and intentionally make mistakes, then continue without breaking your focus." "Really?" Elena asked. "Really? But first we need to choose your repertoire for Carnegie Hall. The Rachmaninoff is good, but you need more. You'll play for about 45 minutes. That means we need several pieces. Some classical, some romantic, maybe something modern. And I think you should include one original composition." "I don't write music," Elena said. "Yes, you do," Victor said. "I can hear it in the way you play. You don't just interpret music, you add yourself to it. That's composition. We'll work on making it intentional. By Carnegie Hall, you'll play at least one piece that is entirely your own creation." Elena felt overwhelmed. "I don't know if I can do all of this." Victor's voice became softer. "Elena, do you know why I agreed to mentor you? Not just because you're talented, though you are extraordinarily talented, but because I heard something in your playing that I lost years ago. Honesty, vulnerability, heart. When I was young, I played with passion. But as I became famous, I started playing to impress people rather than to move them. I forgot why I fell in love with music in the first place. You reminded me. So yes, you can do this, and I'm going to help you. They worked for another 2 hours before taking a break. Elena's fingers hurt and her brain felt exhausted. But she also felt excited. Victor was tough, but he was also brilliant. She was learning things she had never imagined. During lunch, Victor talked to Elena about the business side of music, about contracts and agents and record deals, about how to handle the media, about protecting her privacy while still building a career. You're going to get a lot of offers, Victor said. Some will be good. Some will be people trying to take advantage of you. You need to learn to tell the difference. And you need a good manager. I can recommend some people. This is all happening so fast, Elena said. I know. But fast doesn't have to mean out of control. We'll take it one step at a time. First, we focus on Carnegie Hall. After that, we can think about what comes next. They practiced for 3 more hours that afternoon. By the time Elena's mother came to pick her up at 5 o'clock, Elena felt like she had run a marathon. But it was a good exhaustion. She had learned more in one day than in months of practice at home. Same time on Thursday, Victor said as Elena was leaving. And practice what we worked on today. At least 3 hours a day? I will, Elena promised. Over the next few weeks, a routine developed. Elena went to the academy twice a week for lessons with Victor. The other 5 days, she practiced at home for 4 to 6 hours. Her mother had to quit one of her jobs to help manage Elena's schedule and the constant stream of phone calls and emails. Victor worked Elena harder than anyone had ever worked her before. He made her play pieces dozens of times, each time looking for something different. He taught her about music history, about the composers whose pieces she played, about the stories behind the music. He brought in other musicians to play with her, teaching her about collaboration and listening, but he also kept his promise about not going easy on her. He criticized her mistakes bluntly. He never made excuses for her blindness or treated her as fragile. When she played badly, he told her so. When she played well, he told her that too, but never let her become comfortable or satisfied. Good is the enemy of great, he said often. If you settle for good, you'll never reach great. One day, about 6 weeks into their work together, Elena broke down crying during practice. She had been working on a difficult passage for hours and could not get it right. Her fingers felt clumsy. Her brain felt foggy. Nothing was working. I can't do this, she said, tears running down her face. Carnegie Hall is in 6 weeks and I'm not ready. I'm going to fail. Everyone is going to see that I'm not good enough. Victor was quiet for a moment. Then he sat down on the piano bench next to her. Do you know what I see when I watch you play? He asked. You can't see me play, Elena said bitterly. I'm blind. That's all anyone sees. No, Victor said firmly. I see a young woman who has worked harder than anyone I've ever taught. I see someone who lost her sight but found her voice. I see someone who plays with more heart and soul than pianists twice her age. I see someone who made me cry for the first time in 20 years. That's what I see. Elena wiped her tears. You will be ready for Carnegie Hall. Victor continued. Not because you're perfect, but because you're willing to work until you are. Now take a 5-minute break. Drink some water. Then we try again. Elena did as he said, and when she sat back down at the piano, somehow the difficult passage felt a little easier. Another challenge came from the media attention. Reporters wanted to interview Elena constantly. They all asked the same questions. What's it like to be blind and play piano? How do you memorize music without seeing? Do you see this as overcoming your disability? Elena hated these questions. She did not want to be the inspiring blind girl. She wanted to be recognized as a musician. Period. Victor helped her learn how to handle these interviews. You can't stop them from asking, he said. But you can control your answers. Be honest, be yourself. But also be clear about who you are. You're a musician who happens to be blind, not a blind person who happens to play piano. One interview that went viral helped change the narrative. The reporter asked, "What's it like to play piano without seeing?" Elena responded calmly, "What's it like to listen to music without really hearing it?" The reporter looked confused. "I don't understand. Most people hear music with their ears," Elena explained. "But they don't really listen. They don't hear all the layers and textures and emotions. Being blind taught me to listen with everything I have. So maybe the better question is not how I play without seeing, but how I hear things that others miss. The clip was shared millions of times. People started talking about Elena differently, not as a disability story, but as an artist with a unique perspective. As Carnegie Hall drew closer, Victor's training became even more intense. He brought Elena to the academy almost every day. They worked on every detail of her performance. Her posture, her breathing, her stage presence, how to bow, how to acknowledge applause, how to walk on and off stage with confidence. You only get one first impression at Carnegie Hall, Victor said. We're going to make sure it's perfect. 2 weeks before the performance, Victor did something unexpected. He arranged for Elena to perform in front of a small audience at the academy. About 50 people, mostly students and teachers. You need practice performing, Victor explained. Not just practicing, actually performing for people. Handling your nerves. Dealing with distractions. Elena was terrified, but she did it. She made a few small mistakes, but kept going, just like Victor had taught her. When she finished, the small audience applauded enthusiastically. See, Victor said afterward. You can do this. You just did. 1 week before Carnegie Hall, something important happened. Victor kept his promise about apologizing publicly. He wrote an open letter that was published in several major newspapers and music journals. In it, he described exactly what had happened at Elena's audition. He admitted his prejudice and his cruel words. He apologized not just to Elena, but to everyone who had ever been dismissed because they were different. The letter ended with these words. Elena Martinez is not a blind pianist. She is simply a pianist and one of the finest I have encountered in my lifetime. Her blindness is part of who she is, but it does not define her artistry. Her talent does. I was wrong to judge her before hearing her play. I was wrong to think her blindness made her less capable. The only disability I saw that day was my own closed mind. I am grateful that Elena has given me the chance to learn from my mistake and to help her share her gift with the world. The letter created a huge response. Some people praised Victor for his honesty. Others said his apology was not enough. But most importantly, it shifted the conversation about Elena. People started focusing more on her music and less on her blindness. When Elena heard about the letter, she called Victor. Thank you, she said simply. It was the least I could do, Victor replied. And it was the truth. Now stop thinking about letters and articles and videos. We have 1 week left. Let's make it count. That final week was the hardest. They practiced every single day, sometimes for 8 or 9 hours. They worked through Elena's entire program dozens of times. Victor brought in audio recording equipment and recorded her performances, then played them back so she could hear her own mistakes. Listening to yourself is painful, Victor said, but it's the fastest way to improve. The night before Carnegie Hall, Elena could not sleep. She sat at her piano at home at 2 in the morning, playing softly so she would not wake her mother. Her phone rang. It was Victor. I knew you'd be awake, he said. I'm standing outside Carnegie Hall right now. I come here before every big performance I give. It helps me remember that this is just a building. Just wood and stone. The magic comes from the music, not the place. I'm so scared, Elena admitted. Good, Victor said. Fear means you care. It means this matters to you. But tomorrow when you walk onto that stage, you're going to remember everything we've worked on. You're going to remember that you earned this, not because anyone felt sorry for you, not because you're blind, but because you're extraordinarily talented and you've worked harder than anyone else. That piano on the Carnegie Hall stage is just a piano. You've played pianos your whole life. This is just one more. Just one more, Elena repeated. I'll see you tomorrow, Victor said. Try to sleep. You're going to need your energy. Elena smiled in the dark. Thank you, Victor, for everything. Thank you, Elena, for teaching me to listen again, for reminding me why we make music in the first place. Now get some rest. Tomorrow we show them what real music sounds like. Elena finally went to bed around 3 in the morning. She dreamed again, but this time it was not a nightmare. She dreamed of her father sitting in the front row at Carnegie Hall, smiling and clapping. When she woke up, she felt ready. The morning of the Carnegie Hall performance arrived with gray skies and light rain. Elena woke at 7, having somehow managed a few hours of sleep. She lay in bed for a moment, listening to the rain tap against her window. Today was the day. Everything she had worked for over the past 3 months came down to this one performance. Her mother knocked softly and came in. Good morning, baby. How are you feeling? Terrified, Elena said honestly, and excited, both at the same time. That sounds about right, her mother said with a gentle laugh. She sat on the edge of Elena's bed. I have something for you. I've been saving it for today. Elena heard her mother opening something. Then she felt something being placed in her hands. It was small and hard and cool to the touch. A phone, she realized. An old phone, what is this? Elena asked. Your father's old phone, her mother said, her voice thick with emotion. I've been keeping it charged all these years. There's a voice message on it. He recorded it for you when you were first learning piano, before he got sick. I think he'd want you to hear it today. Elena's hands trembled as her mother showed her which button to press. She held the phone to her ear and pressed play. Her father's voice came through the speaker. Warm, kind, alive. Hello, my musical girl. If you're hearing this, it means you're about to do something important with your piano. I want you to know how proud I am of you. Not because you can play piano, but because you never gave up. When you lost your sight, I was so scared for you. I didn't know how you would live in a dark world. But then I saw you find the light in music. You took something that could have destroyed you and you turned it into something beautiful. That's not just talent, Elena, that's strength. That's courage. So today, whatever you're doing, whoever you're playing for, remember that you are strong. You are brave. And you are so, so loved. I believe in you. I always have. I always will. Now go make beautiful music, my Elena. The message ended. Elena was crying. Her mother was crying. They held each other for a long time. He would be so proud of you today, her mother whispered. Elena nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. They spent the morning going through Elena's routine. A light breakfast, gentle stretches for her hands and arms, some quiet practice on her home piano just to warm up her fingers. Elena's mother had bought her a new dress for today. It was deep purple, elegant and simple. Her mother described it in detail as Elena put it on. You look beautiful, her mother said. Professional, like a real artist. A car arrived at noon to take them to Carnegie Hall. The driver was quiet and professional. As they drove through the city, Elena tried to breathe slowly and calmly the way Victor had taught her. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Stay present, don't think too far ahead. When they arrived at Carnegie Hall, Elena could feel the size and importance of the building just from how sounds echoed around her. People were everywhere. Voices talking, feet walking, doors opening and closing. Someone approached them quickly. Elena Martinez? I'm Sarah, the stage manager. Welcome to Carnegie Hall. Let me show you where you can prepare. Sarah guided Elena and her mother through what felt like a maze of hallways. She described everything as they walked. The photographs on the walls of famous musicians who had performed here. The plaques listing legendary performances. The history contained in these walls. They arrived at a private dressing room. This is yours for the day, Sarah said. There's water and snacks. A bathroom through that door. Your sound check is in 1 hour. Victor Steinberg is already here. He asked me to tell you he's in the auditorium when you're ready. After Sarah left, Elena's mother said, Do you want to rest for a bit, or practice? I want to find Victor, Elena said. She needed to hear his voice to feel grounded before everything began. They made their way to the auditorium. Elena could feel its vastness the moment they entered. The space was enormous. Her mother gasped. Elena, it's so big. There must be 3,000 seats. And the stage is huge. The piano looks tiny in the middle of it. Elena's stomach flipped. 3,000 people. 3,000 pairs of eyes watching her. 3,000 chances to judge whether she belonged here. Elena. Victor's voice came from somewhere ahead. She heard his footsteps approaching. You made it. How are you feeling? Scared, Elena admitted. Good, me too. I'm always scared before big performances. That means we're taking this seriously. He took her arm. Come, let me walk you through the stage. You need to feel comfortable with the space. Victor guided her up the steps to the stage. Elena's white cane tapped against the polished wood. The space felt massive around her. Victor walked her from one side to the other, counting steps, describing the layout. Where she would enter, where the piano was positioned, where she should stand to bow. The piano is a Steinway Model D, Victor said, one of the finest concert grands in the world. The touch is responsive. The sound is rich. You're going to love it. He sat her down at the piano bench and adjusted it to the right height. Elena placed her hands on the keys. They were cool and smooth. She played a few notes. The sound filled the enormous space with crystal clarity. Victor was right. This piano was magnificent. Play through your opening piece, Victor instructed, just to get comfortable with the acoustics. The space is empty now, but you need to hear how your music carries. Elena began playing the first piece of her program, a Bach prelude. The notes soared through the empty hall, echoing off the walls and ceiling. It sounded different from any piano she had played before. Fuller, richer, more alive. Beautiful, Victor said when she finished. You hear how the sound travels? You'll need to be aware of that tonight. When the hall is full of people, the acoustics will change slightly. The sound will be warmer, less echo, but this piano will work with you. Trust it. They spent the next hour going through technical details. Lighting cues that did not matter to Elena but helped the audience. Where the stage manager would be positioned, how long to pause between pieces, every little detail that could make the performance smoother. Finally, Victor said, "That's enough. You need to rest now. Save your energy for tonight. I'll come get you 1 hour before the performance." Back in the dressing room, Elena tried to rest, but her mind would not stop racing. She kept thinking of all the things that could go wrong. What if she forgot the music? What if she tripped walking to the piano? What if her hands froze up? What if she disappointed everyone? Her mother seemed to sense her spiraling thoughts. "Talk to me. Tell me what you're thinking." "I keep thinking about everyone who's going to be watching," Elena said. "Critics who can destroy my career before it even starts. Musicians who might think I don't deserve to be here. People who came just to see if the blind girl can actually play. Or," her mother said gently, "people who came because they heard you play and wanted to hear more. People who believe in you. People who are excited to witness something special. Elena, you've already proven yourself 100 times over. Tonight is not about proving anything. It's about sharing your gift. That's all." "What if I'm not good enough?" Elena whispered. "You are good enough," her mother said firmly. "You are more than good enough. And your father knows it." "I know it. Victor knows it. Now you need to know it too." Elena took a deep breath and nodded. Her mother was right. She had worked too hard and come too far to doubt herself now. The hours passed slowly. Elena practiced some finger exercises, but mostly just tried to stay calm. At 6 o'clock, there was a knock on the door. Victor entered. "It's time," he said. "The hall is filling up. You should see it, Elena. Every seat is sold out. People are standing in the back. There are photographers and reporters. But most importantly, there are people who came just to hear you play." Elena stood. Her legs felt weak, but she made them steady. Her mother hugged her tight. "I love you so much. I'll be in the front row, right where you leave the stage. I'll be there when you walk off, no matter what happens." "I love you too, Mom," Elena said. Victor took her arm, and they began the walk to the stage. Through the hallways, past other musicians warming up in practice rooms, past stage crew rushing around with last-minute preparations. Elena could hear the murmur of the crowd in the auditorium, thousands of voices blending together into a low roar. They stopped in the wings, just off stage. The curtain was still closed. Sarah, the stage manager, was there with a headset on, coordinating everything. 5 minutes, Sarah said. "Victor, you'll need to go to your seat soon." "I'm not sitting in the audience," Victor said. "I'm staying here in the wings. I want to be where Elena can hear me if she needs me." "Are you allowed to do that?" Elena asked. "I'm Victor Steinberg," he said with a hint of amusement. "I can do what I want. Now listen to me one last time before you go out there. You have prepared as well as anyone possibly could. You know this music inside and out. You have the talent. You have the heart. All you need to do now is trust yourself and play the way you've been playing for the past 3 months. This is not about being perfect. This is about being real, about connecting with the audience through your music. Can you do that?" "Yes," Elena said, and she meant it. "Good. One more thing." Victor pressed something small and hard into her hand. Elena felt it. A coin. "That was my good luck charm when I was young. My grandmother gave it to me before my first big performance. Now I'm giving it to you. Not because you need luck, but because you've earned it." Elena closed her fingers around the coin. "Thank you." 3 minutes, Sarah announced. Elena could hear the crowd settling in their seats. The lights must be dimming. Her heart was pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. This was really happening. 2 minutes. Elena handed her white cane to Victor. She would not need it on stage. She had memorized every step from the wings to the piano. She rolled her shoulders, stretched her fingers one last time. 1 minute. The announcer's voice boomed through the auditorium. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Carnegie Hall's Young Artists Showcase. Tonight we are honored to present a remarkable young musician who has captured the world's attention with her extraordinary talent. Please join me in welcoming Elena Martinez. The curtain began to rise. The audience erupted in applause before Elena even walked out. She stood frozen for a moment, overwhelmed by the sound of 3,000 people clapping for her. Victor squeezed her shoulder. Go, show them what you can do. Elena took a deep breath and walked onto the stage. 1 step, 2 steps. She counted in her head, just like she had practiced. The stage lights were bright enough that she could feel the heat of them on her face. The applause continued, growing louder. She found the piano just where it should be and stood beside it, facing the audience. She bowed, the way Victor had taught her, low and respectful. The applause finally began to fade. Elena sat down at the piano bench and adjusted her position. She placed Victor's coin on the ledge of the piano where she could touch it if she needed to. Then she lifted her hands and positioned them over the keys. The hall fell completely silent. 3,000 people holding their breath, waiting. Elena thought of her father's voice on that old phone recording. Go make beautiful music, my Elena. She placed her fingers on the keys and began to play. The first piece was Bach, clear and precise and mathematical in its beauty. Elena's fingers danced over the keys with perfect accuracy. The nervousness fell away as muscle memory took over. This was what she knew how to do. This was where she belonged. She moved seamlessly into the second piece, a Chopin nocturne. This one was softer, more emotional. She thought of her mother sitting somewhere in the darkness in front of her. She played this one for her, pouring gratitude and love into every note. The third piece was Beethoven, powerful and dramatic. Elena played it with her whole body, swaying with the music, her face showing the emotion behind every phrase. This was where she showed her technical skill, her ability to handle complex passages without hesitation. Between each piece, the audience applauded enthusiastically, but Elena barely heard it. She was in the zone now, completely absorbed in the music. One piece flowed into the next, building a journey, telling a story. For her second to last piece, she played the original composition she and Victor had worked on together. She had titled it, Through Darkness Light. It started quietly with slow, sad notes that represented her life before piano. Then gradually, the music grew brighter and more hopeful, building to a triumphant middle section that celebrated finding her voice. The final section combined sadness and joy together, acknowledging both the losses and the gifts of her journey. This was the most personal piece, the most vulnerable. Elena had never played something so revealing before, but Victor had convinced her that this vulnerability was strength, not weakness. When that piece ended, the applause was different, deeper, more emotional. Elena could hear people crying. She paused longer than planned, giving herself a moment to collect herself before the final piece. The final piece was her rearrangement of the Rachmaninoff that had started everything at her audition. But this version was different, more mature, more complex. It incorporated elements of everything she had learned over the past 3 months. It was her goodbye to being unknown, her hello to whatever came next. She played it with everything she had left. Every ounce of emotion, every bit of technical skill, every lesson she had learned from Victor, every memory of her father, every dream of her future. It all went into this one final performance. The last notes rang out into the silence. Elena held them as long as she could, letting the sound fade naturally. Then she lifted her hands from the keys and sat very still. For what felt like forever, there was absolute silence. Then the audience exploded. The sound was like a physical force, washing over Elena in waves. Everyone was on their feet. The applause was deafening. People were shouting and cheering. Elena stood and turned to face the audience, overwhelmed. She bowed once. The applause grew louder. She bowed again, still louder. Someone threw flowers onto the stage. Someone else whistled. The standing ovation continued for so long that Elena lost count of how many times she bowed. Finally, Victor walked out onto the stage. The audience somehow got even louder, applauding both of them. Victor hugged Elena tight, and she could feel that he was crying. "Perfect," he whispered in her ear. "Absolutely perfect." They walked off, stage together, and as soon as they were in the wings, Elena's legs gave out. Victor caught her and lowered her gently to sit on a box. The adrenaline was fading and Elena was shaking all over. "You did it?" Victor said, laughing and crying at the same time. "You really did it. That was one of the finest performances I have ever witnessed. Your father would be so proud. I am so proud." Sarah rushed over. "Elena, you need to go back out there. They're calling for an encore. Listen." Elena could hear it. The audience was chanting, "More, more, more." "I can't," Elena said. "I don't have anything else prepared." "Play anything," Victor said. "Play the Bach again. Play scales if you want. They just want to hear you play." Elena took a deep breath, stood up on shaking legs, and walked back onto the stage. The applause exploded again. She sat at the piano and thought for a moment. Then she began playing a simple melody, the lullaby her father used to hum when she was small. She had never performed it before. She had never even told anyone about it. But tonight felt like the right time to share it. She played it simply, sweetly, adding gentle harmonies and variations. It only lasted a few minutes, but when she finished, the audience was completely silent for a moment. Then the applause came again, softer this time, but somehow more meaningful. Elena bowed one last time and left the stage. As promised, her mother was waiting right there in the wings. She grabbed Elena and they both collapsed into tears, holding each other, not saying anything because there were no words big enough for this moment. Later, in the dressing room, there was a knock on the door. Victor entered with a huge bouquet of flowers and a smile bigger than Elena had ever heard in his voice. "You have a line of people outside who want to meet you," he said. "Critics, reporters, other musicians, even some potential sponsors. But first, there's someone who insisted on seeing you right away." Mrs. Chen's voice came from behind him. "My Elena, my beautiful, talented Elena." Elena rushed to hug her first teacher. Mrs. Chen was crying. I always knew you would do this." "I couldn't have done it without you," Elena said. "You taught me that music was bigger than my blindness." "No," Mrs. Chen said firmly. "You taught yourself that. I just gave you piano. You gave yourself everything else." The rest of the evening was a blur. Elena met what felt like hundreds of people. Critics who praised her performance, musicians who wanted to collaborate, a record label executive who wanted to discuss an album, a concert promoter who wanted to book a tour. It was overwhelming and exciting and exhausting all at once. Through it all, Victor stayed by her side, helping her navigate the attention, protecting her from people who pushed too hard, making sure she did not make any commitments she was not ready for. Finally, near midnight, Elena and her mother got back in the car to go home. Elena leaned her head against the window, completely drained. "How do you feel?" her mother asked. Elena thought about it. "Like everything changed tonight." "It did," her mother agreed. "But you're still the same Elena. My daughter who never gave up, who turned pain into beauty, who proved that talent and heart matter more than eyes." Elena smiled. She thought about her father's recording, about Victor's transformation from cruel critic to devoted mentor, about Mrs. Chen believing in her from the start, about all the hours of practice and tears and determination that had led to tonight. But mostly, she thought about tomorrow and all the tomorrows after that, because tonight was not an ending. It was a beginning. The morning after Carnegie Hall, Elena woke to her phone buzzing nonstop. She reached for it sleepily and felt dozens of notifications, text messages, emails, social media mentions. Her mother knocked on her door and came in sounding excited but also worried. "Elena, You need to see what's happening. Well, I need to tell you what's happening. The reviews are out. Every single one of them is calling your performance extraordinary. The New York Times headline says, Martinez redefines classical piano. The reviews are all 5 stars. Perfect scores. Helena, you did it. Elena sat up in bed trying to process this. After months of work and worry, after years of people doubting her, the critics agreed that she belonged here. She had not just done well. She had excelled. There's more, her mother continued. Your performance video from last night has already been viewed millions of times. And the offers are pouring in. Concert halls wanting to book you. Symphony orchestras wanting you to perform with them. 3 different record labels. A television show wants to interview you. Elena, your life is about to change completely. Elena felt a mix of emotions. Excitement, yes, but also fear. What if this was all too much? What if she could not handle it? What if the next performance was not as good and everyone decided she was just a one-time wonder? Her phone rang. It was Victor. Good morning, musical genius, he said, and she could hear the smile in his voice. Have you seen the reviews? My mom just told me about them, Elena said. They're not exaggerating. Elena, what you did last night was historic. People will be talking about that performance for years, but now we need to talk about what comes next. Can you and your mother come to the academy today? We need to make some decisions about your future. 2 hours later, Elena and her mother sat in a meeting room at the academy with Victor and 2 other people. Victor introduced them as Rachel Kim, a music manager he trusted, and David Foster, an entertainment attorney who specialized in classical musicians. Elena, Rachel began, you have about 37 serious offers on the table right now. Concert performances, recording contracts, endorsement deals. We need to help you figure out which ones make sense and which ones don't. For the next 3 hours, they went through everything. A European concert tour that would take 3 months. A recording contract for 2 albums. An offer to perform at the White House. An invitation to play with the Boston Symphony Orchestra. A documentary crew that wanted to film her life. A piano company that wanted her to endorse their instruments. Elena's head spun with all of it. How do I choose? She asked. We choose based on what's best for your career long term, Rachel said. Not just what pays the most or sounds the most exciting. We build carefully. We make sure you have time to keep learning and growing. We don't burn you out in the first year, Victor added. And we make sure you finish your education. The scholarship you won is still good. You still need to study at the academy. Fame is wonderful, but training is essential. You're only 16. You have your whole career ahead of you. We don't rush it. They decided on a plan. Elena would accept selective performance opportunities. No more than 1 per month for the first year. She would sign with Rachel as her manager. She would record 1 album, but take time to do it right. And most importantly, she would continue her studies at the academy, working with Victor and other teachers to keep developing her skills. What about the documentary? Her mother asked. The crew that wants to film Elena's life? Elena shook her head immediately. No, I don't want cameras following me everywhere. This isn't about my story. It's about the music. Good answer, Victor said approvingly. Never let anyone turn you into a spectacle. You're an artist, not entertainment. Over the next few weeks, Elena tried to adjust to her new life. She moved into a dorm at the academy so she could study full-time. Her room was small but comfortable, and it had a piano. She practiced every morning before classes, then attended lessons and theory classes during the day, then practiced more in the evening. But now her practice sessions were sometimes interrupted by interviews or photo shoots or meetings with people who wanted to work with her. She tried to maintain balance, but it was hard. Everyone wanted a piece of her time. One day, about a month after Carnegie Hall, Elena had a breakdown. She had just finished a difficult rehearsal where nothing went right. Her hands felt clumsy. Her concentration was scattered. Victor had been more critical than usual, pushing her to play better, and Elena finally snapped. I can't do this, she shouted, standing up from the piano. Everyone expects me to be perfect now. 1 great performance and suddenly I'm supposed to be a genius who never makes mistakes. Well, I'm not. I'm just a 16-year-old girl who's tired and overwhelmed and has no idea what she's doing. Victor was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Good, now we can get somewhere. What? Elena said, confused. You've been trying to be perfect ever since Carnegie Hall, Victor explained. Trying to live up to everyone's expectations. Trying to prove you deserve all this attention. But that's not what made your Carnegie Hall performance special. What made it special was that you were honest. You were vulnerable. You played from your heart, not from your need to impress. That's what you need to find again. Elena sank back onto the piano bench, exhausted. I don't know how to do that when everyone is watching. Then we practice it, Victor said. We go back to basics. We remember why you love music in the first place. When did you first fall in love with piano? What made you want to play? Elena thought back to those early days after she lost her sight. How lost and scared she had felt. How the piano became her safe place, her way to express things she could not say with words. It made me feel like I wasn't broken, she said quietly, like I could still create something beautiful even though I couldn't see. Exactly, Victor said. That feeling, that honesty, that's what makes you special. Not technical perfection, not playing every note correctly, the heart you bring to music. Don't lose that because you're afraid of disappointing people. They spent the rest of that session not practicing difficult pieces but just improvising. Playing whatever Elena felt like playing. No structure. No judgment. Just music for the sake of music. It was the best practice Elena had in weeks. That conversation changed something for Elena. She stopped trying so hard to be what everyone expected and started being herself again. Her performances became more relaxed and natural. Critics noticed and praised her growth. 3 months after Carnegie Hall, Elena gave her first official solo concert as a professional musician. It was at a smaller venue than Carnegie Hall, seating only about 500 people. But it sold out within hours of tickets going on sale. Before the performance, Elena was nervous but not terrified like before. She had learned to manage her anxiety, to channel it into her playing rather than let it paralyze her. Victor found her backstage. How are you feeling? Ready, Elena said, and she meant it. Good, remember, you don't owe these people perfection. You owe them honesty. Play the way you feel tonight, and it will be enough. The concert went beautifully. Elena played a mix of classical pieces and her own compositions. She talked to the audience between pieces, sharing stories about the music and her journey. It felt less like a formal performance and more like a conversation. The audience loved it. After the concert, a young girl approached Elena. She had a white cane just like Elena's. Her mother was with her. Miss Martinez, the girl said shyly. I'm Anna, I'm 9. I've been blind since I was born, and I just started learning piano because of you. My teacher says I'm getting good. Elena's heart swelled. She knelt down to the girl's level. That's wonderful, Anna. Can I give you some advice? Yes, please, Anna said eagerly. Don't let anyone tell you that being blind means you can't do something. If you love music, work hard at it. Practice even when it's frustrating. And remember that your blindness isn't a weakness. It makes you listen differently, feel differently, understand music differently. That's a gift. Anna hugged Elena and Elena hugged her back. This, she realized, was why everything had happened. Not just for her own success, but to show other kids like Anna that their dreams were possible too. 6 months after Carnegie Hall, Elena went back to the Berkshire Music Academy for a special event. The Academy was holding a benefit concert to raise money for scholarships, and Elena had agreed to perform. But there was another reason she wanted to be there. She had made a request to the Academy Board and they had agreed. Today they would be announcing a new scholarship program, the Elena Martinez Scholarship for Students with Disabilities. Every year, at least one student with a physical disability who wanted to study music would receive a full scholarship to the Academy, just like Elena had. But Elena had gone further. She had also started a foundation called Through Darkness Light, named after her original composition. The foundation provided free instruments and music lessons to children with disabilities who could not afford them. Victor had helped her set it up and donated a significant amount of money to get it started. This is your real legacy, Victor told her as they prepared for the benefit concert. Not the performances or the recordings, this helping others like you. Opening doors for people who've been told they don't belong. You changed my life, Elena said simply. You believed in me when I needed it most. You pushed me to be better, and you showed me that people can grow and change, that mistakes don't have to define us. They hugged. This unlikely pair who had started as adversary and victim, and had become teacher and student, then colleagues, then friends. 1 year after Carnegie Hall, Elena released her first album. It was called Seeing Sound and featured a mix of classical pieces and original compositions. The album received critical acclaim and commercial success. It debuted at #1 on the classical music charts. But for Elena, the most meaningful moment came when Mrs. Chen called her after listening to the whole album. "You have grown so much," Mrs. Chen said. "But you still have the heart I heard when you were young. You have not lost yourself in the fame. That is the hardest thing for artists. But you did it. Your father would be so proud. I am so proud." Elena was invited to perform all over the world: London, Paris, Tokyo, Sydney. She played in historic concert halls and contemporary venues. She collaborated with orchestras and other soloists. She continued to compose her own music. But she also made sure to perform in smaller venues, especially schools and community centers. She wanted young people, especially those with disabilities, to see that someone like them could achieve their dreams. One of her most memorable performances was at a school for blind children. There were only about 100 students in the audience, ranging from 5 years old to 18. Elena played for them and then spent the afternoon giving individual lessons to students who played instruments. "You're wasting your time here," one of the school administrators said, trying to be complimentary. "You could be performing for thousands of people and making a lot of money." "This isn't a waste of time," Elena said firmly. "This is exactly what I should be doing. These kids need to see that someone like them made it. They need to know it's possible. That's more important than any concert hall." 2 years after Carnegie Hall, Elena turned 18. She was now a full-time student at the academy, while also maintaining a performance career. She had learned to balance both, though it was not always easy. She still had moments of doubt and exhaustion. She still sometimes felt overwhelmed by expectations, but she had also learned something important. She was not defined by one performance or one review or one person's opinion. She was defined by her dedication to music, her commitment to helping others, and her willingness to stay true to herself, despite the pressure to be someone else. Victor continued to be her mentor, but their relationship had evolved. He now consulted with her on his own performances and compositions. He valued her perspective and her unique way of hearing music. They had become true collaborators. One day they were working on a new piece Elena was composing. It was more ambitious than anything she had written before, incorporating elements of classical, jazz, and modern music. "This is extraordinary," Victor said as he listened to her play through it. "You're not just playing music anymore. You're creating new musical language. You're pushing boundaries." "You taught me that," Elena said. "You taught me that music should evolve and grow. That we shouldn't be afraid to try new things." "No," Victor said. "You taught yourself that. I just stopped standing in your way." The piece Elena was working on would eventually be performed by a major symphony orchestra with Elena as the featured soloist. But more than that, it would be published and played by musicians around the world. It would become one of her most celebrated works. On the 3rd anniversary of her Carnegie Hall debut, Elena was invited back to perform there again. This time the concert was a celebration of everything she had accomplished. The program included pieces she had played at her debut, her newer compositions, and a collaborative piece she had written with Victor. Before the performance, Elena stood backstage in the same spot where she had stood 3 years ago, terrified and uncertain. Now she felt confident but still respectfully nervous. She would always be nervous before performances. That meant she still cared deeply about the music. Victor stood beside her just like he had 3 years ago. But this time he was also performing. They would play a duet, their first public performance together. "Are you ready?" he asked. "Yes," Elena said. "Thank you for everything, Victor. For believing in me. For pushing me. For teaching me." "Thank you for reminding me why we make music," Victor said. "For teaching me to listen again. For showing me that the best students can also be the best teachers." They walked onto the stage together. The audience erupted in applause. Elena made her way to one of the 2 grand pianos on stage. Victor went to the other. They sat down simultaneously and looked at each other across the space between the pianos. Then, together, they began to play. The music they created was a conversation, a dialogue between teacher and student, between experience and youth, between someone who had almost lost his love of music and someone who had helped him find it again. Their pianos sang to each other, sometimes in harmony, sometimes in playful disagreement, always in mutual respect. When they finished, The standing ovation lasted even longer than it had 3 years ago. People were crying openly. Critics would later call it one of the most moving performances they had ever witnessed. But for Elena, the most meaningful moment came after the concert. A young man approached her backstage. He was using a wheelchair and had braces on his arms. "Miss Martinez," he said, "I'm James. I've been watching your career since your first Carnegie Hall performance. Because of you, I decided to pursue music seriously. I just got accepted to the Berkshire Music Academy with a full scholarship. The Elena Martinez Scholarship." Elena felt tears spring to her eyes. "That's wonderful. What instrument do you play?" "Cello," James said. "I was told I'd never be able to play because of my condition, but you taught me that never is just another word for not yet. I worked hard and I got good enough. Thank you for showing me that was possible." This, Elena thought, was what it was all about. Not the fame or the reviews or the sold-out concerts. This, changing lives by showing people what was possible. 5 years after her first audition at Berkshire, Elena graduated from the academy with highest honors. She was now 21 years old and had already accomplished more than most musicians did in a lifetime, but she still saw herself as just beginning. At her graduation, she gave the commencement speech. She talked about her journey, about losing her sight and finding her voice, about facing prejudice and proving doubters wrong. But mostly she talked about the importance of perseverance and self-belief. 5 years ago, she told her fellow graduates, "Someone told me I didn't belong in the world of music. For a moment I almost believed them, but then I decided that I would let my art speak louder than the doubts, both mine and anyone else's. That's my advice to you as you leave this place. Let your work speak for itself. Let your passion drive you. Let your uniqueness be your strength, not your weakness. And never, ever let anyone tell you that you don't belong." After graduation, Elena faced a choice. She could tour full-time, performing constantly. She could focus on composing. She could teach. Or she could try to do all three. She chose to create balance. She performed regularly but selectively, choosing concerts that mattered to her personally or that supported causes she believed in. She composed music that pushed her artistically, and she taught young musicians, especially those with disabilities, giving back the way Victor had given to her. Victor, now in his 60s, had cut back on his own performing to focus more on teaching. He and Elena co-taught master classes together, showing students that collaboration between generations, between different perspectives, created the best learning environment. "You know," Victor said to her one day after a particularly good class, "I used to think my legacy would be my performances, the concerts I gave, the recordings I made. But now I know better. My legacy is you and students like you, the musicians I helped shape, the doors I helped open, the minds I helped change, including my own." "That's a pretty good legacy," Elena said with a smile. 10 years after that first audition, Elena was invited back to the Berkshire Music Academy for a special ceremony. They were renaming the main auditorium. It would now be called the Martinez Performance Hall. Elena stood on the stage where she had first played for Victor, where he had dismissed her so cruelly, where she had proved him wrong with one performance. The room was filled with students, teachers, board members, and supporters. The Academy president gave a speech about Elena's contributions to music and to the Academy. Then Elena was invited to speak. She stood at the podium, her white cane beside her, and addressed the audience. 10 years ago, I walked into this room terrified," she began. "I was a scared 16-year-old who had been told she didn't belong here. This room, this stage, represented everything I wanted and everything I thought I couldn't have. But that day changed my life, not because I played well, but because someone was willing to admit they were wrong and help me prove it." She turned toward where Victor sat in the front row. "Victor, could you please join me up here?" Victor stood and made his way to the stage. Elena took his hand. "This hall isn't being named after me alone," Elena said. "It's being named after what happened here.